Good morning to all. Hello to everyone joining today's webinar. I'm Dr. Pradeep Bolani, and as the co-convener of this event, I'm delighted to welcome a diverse and engaged audience. Your participation greatly enriches our discussion and underscores our shared commitment to advancing in our respective fields. I look forward to a productive conversation and collective learning as we embark on this educational journey together. SPSR is distinguished for its engaging webinars, further enhancing its status as a leading platform for continuous professional development in the pharmaceutical sector. I am confident that today's session will uphold our tradition of excellence, providing valuable insights from the respected speaker. Let us seize this chance to gain new knowledge, participate actively, and progress our field. Welcome, everyone. I look forward to a productive conversation for all participants. Thank you for joining us today. We are gathered today to commemorate the 92nd SPSR webinar on antimicrobial resistance, breaking the silence on a looming public health emergency, a distinguished event hosted by the Society of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Research. Under the esteemed guidance of Dr. Shashi Alok, National President of SPSR, the Society continues to play a pivotal role in fostering innovation and advancement in the field of pharmaceutical sciences. The SPSR is devoted to advancing the pharmaceutical field through a variety of strategies. Our mission is to organize conferences that support pharmacy related initiatives and endorse programs tackling public health issues in India, focusing particularly on disease prevention. We make it a priority to recognize and honor pharmacists whose notable contribution drive progress in our field. At the heart of our mission is a commitment to spreading pharmaceutical knowledge, ensuring a steady and robust exchange of information about pharmaceutical practices and services. By striving towards these objectives, we aim to elevate the quality and impact of pharmacy profession, fostering a proactive and collaborative community dedicated to excellence. It is our great privilege to introduce Dr. Tarique Mahmood, Professor and Chairman IAEC, Faculty of Pharmacy, Integral University, Lucknow, Uttar Pradesh, India, as a distinguished speaker. Dr. Tarique Mahmood expertise greatly contributes to our event, providing substantial knowledge and insights. His participation is certain to enrich our discussions and expand exploration of antimicrobial resistance. We are grateful for his engagement and anticipate an enlightening session. It is our privilege to introduce Mrs. Monika Sabharwal as the convener for today's webinar, who also serves as the founder and National Secretary of SPSR and CEO SPSR Periodicals Private Limited. Her significant involvement and leadership in the pharmaceutical sciences and research communities are indicative of her commitment to the field. We are very grateful to have her guidance in today's session. Now we will start with the short introduction to guest profile. Dr. Tarique Mahmood is a distinguished academician, researcher, and pharmaceutical professional with over 17 years of extensive experience spanning teaching, research, and the pharmaceutical industry. He is currently serving as the professor at the Faculty of Pharmacy, Integral University, Lucknow, where he also holds the position of chairman of the Institutional Ethics Committee and deputy director of the Career Counseling and Guidance Cell. Dr. Mahmood has served as the head of the Department of Pharmacy and has been a member of the Executive Council of Integral University. He is also the principal investigator of an EMR project sanctioned by the Ministry of Ayush, Government of India. An accomplished researcher, Dr. Mahmood has published more than 110 research and review articles in reputed international and national journals with a cumulative impact factor of over 60 and has contributed over 70 abstracts in conferences. He has actively participated in over 80 national and international conferences in various capacities, including keynote speaker, guest speaker, and organizing committee member. Dr. Mahmood is recognized PhD and postgraduate supervisor, having successfully guided around 60 M.Pharm students, 12 PhD scholars, with 8 more PhD scholars currently under his supervision. He also regularly serves as an external examiner for doctoral and postgraduate dissertation across universities. As a resource person, he has delivered lectures in the faculty development programs, staff training sessions, and career counseling initiatives, contributing actively to both academic and professional development forums. His leadership has also been recognized by prestigious awards from organizations including the Ministry of Ayush, Faisal Foundation, APTI, Scientific Indexing, and Bentham Science. Dr. Tarique Mahmood continues to inspire and guide through his work at the intersection of pharmaceutical, education, research, and career development. It is with great satisfaction and pride that we declare that we have exceeded 1,200 registrations from this webinar. Sorry. Registration received are from India, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Cameroon, Ethiopia, Indonesia, Iraq, Kenya, Kazakhstan, Kuwait, Malaysia, Mexico, Nepal, Nigeria, Saudi Arabia, Sri Lanka, UAE, and Uganda. We are deeply moved by the substantial and varied responses we have garnered. Our heartfelt gratitude is extended to each participant who has taken a moment to participate in this significant event. Thank you all for joining us today. Let's make this webinar an insightful and enriching experience for everyone involved. We have our keynote speaker, Dr. Tarique Mahmood, with us. Welcome, sir. Your insights would be highly valuable, and I would appreciate if you could present them in a speech. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pradeep. Good morning to all of you. Am I audible?
Right, sir, audible.
Okay. So first of all, many thanks, Dr. Pradeep, for a widespread introduction of me, which is at least from my side, it is not necessary. I am just a pharmacist, remain a pharmacist, always a pharmacist. Thank you, SPSR, Society of Pharmaceutical Sciences and Research, especially Dr. Shashi Alok sir. Yesterday, I messaged Dr. Shashi regarding this webinar, and it is not hesitating for me to say on public forum that the commitment, the dedication, and sincereness of Dr. Shashi and the whole team of SPSR is commendable, and I am thrilled actually. It is a regular practice for me to participate such type of events, either online or offline, as a resource person of various capacities, as Dr. Pradeep mentioned. But the type of sincereness and dedication to conduct a webinar by Team SPSR, it is really commendable, and many congratulations to whole team, especially Dr. Shashi sir. So I think without wasting much more time, I am sharing my presentation. And Dr. Pradeep, please guide me. It is visible or not? I think it is visible.
Right, sir, it's visible, sir.
Okay, so
Perfect.
if you permit, I start.
Yes, sir, we can start, sir.
Okay. Good morning, all participants. And as Dr. Pradeep informed us a very thrilling and interesting figures of the participants across the globe. It is due to that sincereness and dedication which I discussed just now. Without such type of effort, it is not possible that more than 1,000 and 1,200 near about registration across the globe. So Team SPSR is kudos to Team SPSR for that one. And thank you all participants from across the globe. And the topic of today's talk is antimicrobial resistance, breaking the silence on a looming public health emergencies. In that title, the word looming included a lot of meaning here. if you go for diction, you find the meaning of looming very interesting. Looming, it is a type of upcoming threat which is a silent one, you can say, and which is not miserable one. Or the other aspect of looming is that one at present time, the society and the public domain is not such aware about that threat which is upcoming. So, antimicrobial resistance is one type of that threat which you can say that it is a silent threat. It is not for only the people live in India. Actually, it is a silent threat across the globe. So, uh, I think slide is not moving.
Yes, the slide is not moving, sir.
Yes, yes,
You
yes.
can again share if it's not working.
Yes, yes, yes. Now it is moving.
Right, sir, moving, sir.
Okay.
Perfect.
So the outline of this session briefly concluded into these subheadings. The first one is introduction, the key facts and recent trends, the causes, the clinical outcomes, and finally, the most important thing, the strategies to curb further emergence of resistance. So in this presentation, I moved slightly with lower space from the basic introduction, and then what some basic science or you can say pharmacology of antimicrobial resistance, which I think everybody knows. But as the topic of that one, it is necessary to discuss the basic science and concept of that one, and then I have some data regarding that one, and finally the strategies which the not by me or the scientists, that the strategies which the authorities suggested to curb that emergence of resistance. So I start with the introduction. As we all know that antimicrobial resistance is a type of drug resistance where a microbe is able to survive of exposure to an antimicrobial agent. Or you can say in a more simple word, resistance of any pathogen to any of antimicrobial agent for which it was previously sensitive. And one more thing here, I have used the terminology antimicrobial, but and as we know that antimicrobial includes all, with bacteria or protozoal or other pathogens also. So it commonly known as antimicrobial, but basically WHO and US FDA focuses on antibiotic resistance, basically related to bacteria, which are but in that presentation, I covered the whole domain of that antimicrobial, focusing on antibiotics. Uh, if a bacteria carries resistance to more than one antibiotic, it is called multi-drug resistance (MDR), or informally known as superbug or superbacterium. That superbug or superbacterium I'll discuss in the later one of my presentation, because it is very important one to know that what are the superbugs. It is not the theory part, or you can say it is not the type of literature which published in the public domain, that these are the theories or the hypothesis. This is the data which and these are there are the numbers of the lots of the superbugs which exist at present time. We are surrounded by them. That's why in the title it is mentioning the looming word, or you can say the silent threat. There are some key facts regarding antimicrobial resistance. It is a global health problem. As I had told earlier, it is not concentrated to any particular region of the globe. It is throughout the globe, especially in the developing countries like India and certain parts of the Africa, which are facing very much of that problem. But you can't say that the European part and other part of the globe are the safe from that one. So it is a global health problem, it resulting in prolonged illness and greater risk of death. About this is a figure I think which is not up to date. It is, I think, 2 year back data, 1 or 2 year back data about 440 new cases of multi-drug resistance emerges annually, causes at least 1.5 thousands of death per year. That is the you can say pace, or that is the speed of the development of the resistance. Here I mention a very interesting fact regarding the TB, as we Indians know that in the early 2000s or the late 90s or in the early 2000s, there is a golden period regarding the treatment of the tuberculosis by the very well-known program of Government of India that is known as DOTS. Uh, so the effectiveness of and the, you can say, the good approach of the dots goes in that way that in India, we are assuming, or government are assuming, that in next 10 to 20 years, we control that tuberculosis problem and we come out from that one. But within 3 to 4 years, between 2000 to 2005, the cases again rises rapidly, and the scientists, researcher, and the government agencies then worked on that reason. What happened in just 4 to 5 years, that the tuberculosis cases again rises up to a very, you can say, the multiple manner. Then it is found that now the tuberculosis, the Mycobacterium tuberculosis, is the multi-drug resistance. It have the multi-drug resistance against the existing basket of the tuberculosis drugs. It is, everybody knows that there is a very limited basket of tuberculosis drug. The traditional classical therapy regimen exists right now also. Most of the tuberculosis pathogens are resistant to that tuberculosis basket. So now, in most of the cases, 7 to 8 cases out of the 10 is MDR-TB. Right now, it is the situation. That's why the classical therapy regimen is longer and longer, and it is very difficult to treat, or you can say to prevent that spreading of the tuberculosis. According to a report by WHO, more than 1 million deaths will occur due to AMR till to 2050, if not will be addressed. That's why I am saying in the starting that warning is given by the WHO, that if we not control, or we not address, or we not making the policies regarding to control the antimicrobial resistance, near about 1 million deaths till 2050. Okay, resistance to earlier generation antimalarial medicines such as chloroquine, sulfadoxine, and pyrithamine is widespread in most malarial endemic countries. The same case, another examples other than the bacteria is that protozoal disease, the malarial disease. The classical drugs available for malaria, that chloroquine, sulfadoxine, pyrithamine. Now, in most of the regions of the African and sub-African region and Indo-Asian regions, that they've developed the resistance against these drugs. That's why, if the in certain period when the malaria parasite is active, it is very difficult to control at that time with that drugs. Approx 63,000 people die in USA every year due to nosocomial infection. I'll present data in the last of my presentation regarding that hospital acquired on nosocomial infection. Everybody knows that nosocomial means the hospital acquired infections. So, that is the case of USA, where we assume that the health standards, or you can say the hygiene standards in the hospital, is on a very high side compared to the developing countries. So, in USA, that is the position, that 63,000 people die in USA every year due to nosocomial infection caused by a very common and very fatal superbug. As I discussed earlier, that example of the superbug is MRSA, that is methicillin resistant Staphylococcus aureus. And it is the main culprit, or you can say the main accused, to cause all type of hospital acquired infection or nosocomial infection. Its importance as viewed by international health agencies, there are two, you can say, main health agencies out the globe. One is FDA and second is WHO. So what FDA says? That same statement I copied, which is given by FDA. The unless antibiotic resistance problem are detected as they emerge and actions are taken to control them, the world could be faced with previously treatable diseases that have again become untreatable. As in the days before antibiotics were developed, the so-called pre-antibiotic era. That is the statement given by the FDA, I think long year back in 2014 or 2015. And that is a statement given by WHO. Antimicrobial resistance is a global problem that must be addressed in all countries. No single nation, however effective it is in its borders, can protect itself from the importation of resistance pathogen through travel and trade. It is very important when I'll discuss in the later on slide how that antimicrobial resistance travels throughout the globe either by means of the environmental involvement of the environmental factor, or you can say simply carrying the resistant pathogen by a particular person which have that gene of that antimicrobial resistant gene travels to a particular country where it is sensitive one, but he or she carries that gene to that one. And there is no such type of, you can say, regulatory bodies or you can say the policies which contours on that one. That's why WHO point out on that point that it is not the problem only for the actually WHO asked that thing for the developed countries that you are not safe from that one. You can't assume that one this disease is only for the developing countries. Basically, if no single nation is safe from that antimicrobial resistance. Actually, this is a race. This is a race versus man and woman versus bug. It is very, you can say, old one race. It is not the new concept. It is, but the you can say the seriousness or the threat of that particular problem is the new one. We find out that that is a very fatal problem, or that is a very, you can say, looming problem of the society in a very late state. But that is the problem is not the newer one. It is very old one. It the if you find out the race start with the very early days when the discovery of penicillin discovered against the Staphylococcus aureus by the Sir Alexander Fleming in 1940, and in 1944 the penicillin clinical use approved, and just in 1956, after 12 years of its clinical existence, the resistance against the penicillin has been developed in only 12 years. That is the pace of the race between man versus bug. And there are certain other examples of the antibiotic where you find out what pace of the resistance and what pace of the antibiotic development. In the later on slide, I have discussed in 3 to 4 slides. I will discuss about the pharma industry versus the you can say superbug. Very interesting part of the presentation. What is the speed of the development of the resistance and what is the speed of our R&D to develop the new antibiotic. So that is a race between that two one. So here there are certain examples of very old antibiotics, the penicillin, streptomycin, tetracycline, erythromycin, vancomycin, and gentamicin. See the discovery years, the clinical uses years, and resistance identified. Like gentamicin, a very, very potent antibiotic discovered in 1963, clinical use start in 1967, and resistance identified in 1970, just after 3 years. So that is the speed. One more very known antibiotic for us that from the macrolide category, as it is also available in oral tablet form, because all other one are the parenteral one, the erythromycin. Developed 52, clinical use 55, then resistance identified in just 1 hour later, that is 56. So there are certain examples of certain diseases which are the leading global infectious diseases. And in that graph, in the y-axis, you find out the millions of deaths worldwide. And in x-axis, there are the diseases. The first one is the respiratory infection caused by S. pneumoniae, up to 55% resistance to penicillin in many regions. The second one is HIV. As we discussed the antimicrobial, we cover all that one other than the bacteria also. HIV reported to MD resistance, the same thing. The third one is the diarrhea caused by S. dysentery. 50% of the multi-drug resistance is there. The next one is tuberculosis, the newer one that I told earlier also. Now the tuberculosis is, in common terminology, it is referred as MDR-TB. And the last one is that example also covered earlier. That is the malaria caused by plasma falciparum. Chloroquine, it is resistant developed by chloroquine in 81 out of 92 countries. That too 92 countries where the malaria exists. From that, 92 countries, 81 countries find that the particular pathogen is now resistant to chloroquine. So that is the speed of that one. Now, from this slide to I think 4 to 5 slides, there are some basic signs of the antimicrobial resistance, as I told earlier. Some you can say basic science or the basic pharmacology behind that one. So it's start with that the basic you can say classification or the broad umbrella of the resistance, antimicrobial resistance. You can find out that there are two types of resistance. That is the theoretical part basically. The first one is known as the natural or innate resistance. Innate ability of bacterium to resist a class of bacterium, always expressed in a group or a species. It doesn't causes any significant clinical problem because it is a natural or innate one. I knew that. Like example, gram-negative bacilli are unaffected by penicillin G. M. tuberculosis is insensitive to tetracycline. So it is known by scientists also when it discovered that that particular type of antibiotic is or antimicrobial agent is not effective on that type of pathogen because that type of pathogen have the innate type of resistance. So there is no harm. And we doesn't discuss about that type of innate resistance. Basically, the problem is the second one, that is acquired resistance. That is actually the antimicrobial resistance. It is the development of the resistance by an organism which was sensitive before due to the use of an AMA over a period of time. Now, that particular type of pathogen develop the resistance against that antibiotic from which it is previously sensitive one. That is the major problem. That's why it is referred as acquired one. And that one is the basic threat. Because as I told earlier also, there are the, you can say race or you can say the war between that two component. One side it is you can say bugs, pathogens, and second is the basket of the drugs. So there are two concepts behind that one. Very simple. Either we increase that basket very rapidly. So newer and newer antibiotic in the same pace where newer and newer pathogens have developed on newer and newer superbug. It is not possible. So the second thing is to save the existing antibiotic. That is the main issue. Okay, the next one is the transmission of acquired resistance. It is very interesting one. Genetically, antimicrobial resistance is spread through bacterial population by two means, or you can say by both means. There are two means. One is the vertical and second one is the horizontal. Vertical, when a new generation inherited the antimicrobial gene from previous one. It is very interesting one. It means what? It means what? The F2 generations receive the that particular antimicrobial resistant gene from the F1. You can't control that genetic transmission of that antimicrobial resistance from transferring from generation to generation. That is known as the vertical one. It is obvious one. It is very, you can say, well established one. So it is, you can say, the discussed one topic. But the second one is a very dramatic one, very, you can say, problematic one. That is the horizontal one. What is horizontal? Horizontal means when a bacteria shares or exchange the antimicrobial genes with other bacteria. It is a very important concept. It means what? I think it is described in the next slide If you go to that particular, am I audible?
Audible, your please share your presentation again.
Okay. It is visible?
Not right, sir.
It is visible?
No, sir, not right.
Okay, okay.
Yes, sir, is visible. Please click on full screen. Yes, sir.
Okay, I am here. Sorry for disturbance. I think there is some certain glitch from my side or network connection. Okay, fine. So I am telling that one that transmission of that antimicrobial gene, the two ways, the vertical and the horizontal way. So I am saying that vertical one is not a problem. If you go for a particular class of antibiotic, you can understood by in that way. Suppose I take a class of antibiotic like macrolide one. So when the erythromycin develop the resistance, we know now the no one take the erythromycin if there is a certain throat infection. The next one from that one, a very you can say hit antibiotic, very popular one, that is the roxithromycin. If you have certain type of upper respiratory infection, roxbutamine is very effective till 2000, late 2000, or you can say 2010, 2012. But certainly, you find out a very new antibiotic from that class in market that is known as azithromycin. And when azithromycin came in market, roxithromycin is, you can say, subside by azithromycin. Now, if you find any prescription which have the macrolide one, you find azithromycin. Very rare physician prescribes the roxitro. Although the roxitro is active in certain cases right now, it is not that one that roxit is completely resistant. All pathogens have developed resistance against the roxithromycin. But when the newer one came, the earlier antibiotic subside, it is a very basic problem of that one. I will discuss in the later one when we go for the factors or the causes of the development of resistance. That one is one very important one. So I am explaining the vertical transmission. So sir, that is vertical from erythro to the next one, the next one. But horizontal means as the definition says that a bacteria develop the resistance against particular, you can say antibiotics, and that then that transfer that gene from us to the next other such type of antibiotics which have the similar type of mechanism of action or similar type of target. That is very interesting one. Suppose an antibiotic have a mechanism of action of so and so to a particular target, and there are another class of antibiotic which have the near about the same mechanism of action or near about the same target or same pathway by which that the next class of antibiotic acts. So the previous class of antibiotic transfer that AMR gene to that one, take that gene and develop the resistance against that one. I am already developed the resistance, so you are also the resistant. That is known as the horizontal one, and that is the basic threat and you can say the challenge to the scientist one and to the pharma industry R&D one to develop that. You can say to antibiotic, or you can say to make out the policy to overcome that problem, horizontal transmission. So now the factors contributing to AMA resistance. Basically, there are a lot of factors, many aspect, or you can say the multiple component involved in that one. If I want to summarize in certain headings or subheadings, there are, you can say, four. One is the environmental factor, the drug related factor, the patient related factor, and the physician related factor. The first one is the environmental factor. It is rapid spread, increased traveling. Okay. The basic fundamental when we discuss about environmental is the rapid traveling habit right now compared to the previous years or previous year. It is very easy to travel from one place of the globe to another one, and it is not, you can say, certain type of policy or finding, or you can say the investigation that particular person have certain type of resistant gene or not. The second one is the poor sanitation. The third one is the community acquired resistance. It is a very important point. Certain, you can say, part of the African region where certain diseases are the pandemic one. So the researcher find out that the whole region or whole specific community of that particular region developed the resistance against a particular gene. Okay. Ineffective infection control programs. That point is basically for the developing countries. And lastly, the widespread use of antibiotics in animal husbandry and agriculture and as a medicated cleansing product. That point I discuss in the netter slide. It is very important one, very interesting one. And last year, I think in 2023, 22, 3 years back, I have taken, I am invited in the veterinary doctors conference where I presented that antimicrobial resistance presentation only specific to the use of antibiotics in the cattle. Okay, in the livestock. It is a very important point, and I think the general public now aware about that one, but not such much that it causes so problematic one in for us in the upcoming years. The second one is the drug related factor. I think these all points we all know that one as a pharmacist, like suboptimal drug quality, the soaring use of antibiotic, the over-the-counter availability of antimicrobial agents, the irrational fixed dose combination of antimicrobials. Again, it is a problem of some countries. It is not the problem of all countries, because we know that the fixed dose combination of antimicrobial agent is not approved in most of the part of the globe. But like in India, in many countries, there are the certain types of antimicrobial combination which is included in the National Medical Essential List. So I think we all know that in our country we found a lot of antimicrobial combination in India and prescribed by the physicians and taken by the patients. And the last one, fake and substandard drug causing suboptimal blood concentration. So these are the factors which is basically part of the, you can say, the pharma industry or the formulation development part or R&D part. So In that one, we doesn't do so much. But in the third point, that is the over-the-counter and availability of antimicrobial, we should make a policy regarding that one. Like you can say the narcotic drugs, okay, without prescription, the prescription drug the same year. But the problem is that all antibiotics are freely available, and you can say um, everybody from A to Z and X, Y, Z have taken the antibiotic from anywhere else and start taking that one. And uh, when he or she thinks that now I am fine, he or she stop that therapy. That is the basic problem. I think it will discuss in the clinic, the physician part also. The patient-related factor, the poor adherence of dosage regimen, the poverty, the lack of sanitation concept, the lack of education, and the self-medication. It is very important. That's why in antimicrobial resistance awareness program, all program, basically the main stakeholder is the general public. The second one is the physician and pharmacist, but the first one is the always the general public. To aware about that one, this point. Like the first one is to avoid the poor adherence. Poor adherence means as I told earlier, it doesn't follow the guideline. You can say instruction of the physician. Most of the time, there is a self medication, and there is inappropriate, or you can say incomplete therapy regimen. If the particular antibiotic has a therapy regimen of 5, 3 to 5 or 5 or 7 or 10 or 14 the patient doesn't complete that whole therapy regimen and stops after 3 or 4 or 5 days, but if doctor prescribe for 7 days. So that is the problem. And the last one is the self-medication. And that one is the physician-related factors. I make the red color here. If you find out in the previous slide, it was the blue one, but here it is a red one. Red one is that one because it is the problem which have the, you can say, most contribution in that all type of factors, and it should be, you can say, addressed by the physicians one. And of course we as a pharmacist have also, you can say, take part in that one to avoid, or you can say, to control these factors. Like the first one is inappropriate use of available drugs, increase empiric polyantimicrobial use. Like there are two things. One is that combination one, and second one is the polyantimicrobial use. Polyantimicrobial means more than one antibiotic in a single prescription of a particular single infection. It is exists in the prescription. I have seen many prescriptions, not from, you can say, such type of, you can say, lower categories of patient. It is the prescription from the medical colleges. There are the more than one antibiotics. Okay, na? Prescription by many physicians. Okay, na? In the urban cities, it is not the problem. You can say the rural one where there is a problem of the education or lack of the education. No, it is a problem of the big cities where the big physician is designated, because there is a basic clinical concept actually is that start with the basic one and start with the lower one. What it means? It means that if there is a particular type of infection, if you want to prescribe or start antibiotic to your patient, start with the basic one. Basic one means you start with the first prototype drug of that class. If we go in the past one or in present, if we go to certain physician, the old physicians, the very old physicians, they follow that tradition. You you are also agree with me that if you go for a very old physician, 60 plus, 65 plus physician, and if you go for around 40 years, 40 plus years of the physician, there is a difference of the drug basket prescribed that two physician for the same infection, for the same disease. From where it comes? It comes from the theories which he, you can say, exists with him as he taught in during his education, actually. The old one follows that old tradition. The newer one, newer physician follows the newer concept, or you can say the newer pace of the treatment. What is the basic difference between two? That is the theory is the basic difference between two. What is the theory? That start with the lower one and start with the basic one. Basic one means start with the basic prototype of that, not with the higher one. And start with the lower one, start with the lower dose. Now, from take that theory in your mind and now evaluate the present. Take a common survey, collect 10 to 15 prescriptions and evaluate that 10 to 15 prescription on that parameter. The antibiotic prescribed in that prescription, either it is a basic one or lower one or not. You find out that 7 to 8 or not 7 to 8, 8 to 9 prescription, you can say, doesn't follow that basic guidelines. If you go for the pediatrics, you find out in pediatric session, what is the most common selling antibiotic from the pediatric section? If I ask the students, what is the most common antibiotic? You find out the most common antibiotic prescribed by the pediatric department is the cefixime. The brand of Alchem, that is Taximo suspension. And what is cefixime? Cefixime is the third generation oral cephalosporin. The only oral cephalosporin available as oral form in third generation. All third generations are the parenteral except cefixime. If you go for pharmacology book, you find out that one. The third gen and then the fourth generation cephalosporin, which all are the parenteral one. In the third generation, it means that in all basket of cephalosporin, the highest oral cephalosporin available is cefixime. And we are giving that cefixime to our children. That is the theory which I want to say and I want to explain to you. Then what happened to that children after next 15 years when they become elder, near about 20 plus age? If there is no new oral antibiotic came, what happens? That is the thing. So that is the problem which should be addressed. The overuse of antimicrobials. Overuse is also a very overuse means what? A very common example, as we all know that whenever there is a flu, we should not take the antibiotic. Everybody knows, but what happened? Everybody take the antibiotic. Here there is a science behind that one. Basically, when we have the viral infection, we are taking the antibiotic to prevent the secondary infection, secondary bacterial infection. But when there is a chances of secondary bacterial infection, then not in every cases. If you have simple the fever, there is no there is a case when there is no other symptom of disease, only there is a fever. Okay. For which there is a term known as the no-cause fever. The cause of the fever not known, but there is a persistent fever. Take the simple paracetamol, go for the urine culture, go for the blood investigation and the urine investigation. And before that, please don't take any antibiotic. Either it is proven that there is a certain infection in blood in your body and you need that antibiotic, then you go for antibiotic. But what happened when we have the viral infection? Basically when we have the viral infection, the immunity goes down. There are the secondary bacterial infection pop up, and we have taken the antibiotic to prevent that secondary infection, like a very common one in cold and flu. If there is a congestion, there is a sinusitis, or there is a tonsillitis, or there is a bronchitis. So we have taken the antibiotic for upper respiratory infection or lower respiratory infection. So that is the secondary case. If you, in that case, you have the infection, you have the bacterial infection, then you want to, you should take the antibiotic. But not in every case. You have the fever, you doesn't take the antibiotic, as you can say the prophylactic one. There is no such type of cases for antibiotic to take the antibiotic as a prophylactic one. Okay. The next one is the inadequate dosing, and the last one is the lack of current knowledge and training. Okay, so factors contributing to MA resistance. as in among all that four categories of you can say the factors. Now I have extracted the main factors, or you can say the main culprits which are involved behind AMA resistance. The first one is the antibiotic use is the main driving force for antibiotic resistance. How much the antibiotic have been used, the more the resistance have been developed. So the basic thing is that at what extent, where it is possible, the please avoid the use of taking the antibiotic, because as much as the use, as much as the resistance. That is the simple funda. The second one is the widespread use of antibiotics both inside and outside of medicine is playing a significant role in emergence of resistance bacteria. Inside and outside of medicine, I discussed earlier. Inside of medicine means the problem inside the drugs, the problem in the drug itself, the quality of the drugs, or the other things related to the drug itself. And outside of the medicine means the environmental factor and the factor related to the patient and the physician. There are the certain, you can say, facts and figures of that one in medicine or in clinic causes. 50% of antibiotic use in human is either unnecessary or inappropriate. That is the published data. A third of people believe that antibiotics are effective for the common cold, as I told. That's the same thing I told earlier also, for the common cold. And the common cold is the most common reason antibiotics are prescribed. But as I told, that is not in every case. Okay. Until unless there is a secondary bacterial infection where you use the antibiotic. Okay. Treatment of fever and non-responsive infection of unknown reason without proper diagnosis. That same thing I discussed earlier. A third of people believe that antibiotics are effective for common cold. The same point is there. There is a study published, a very, I think, 22 years old study. But at that time, I mentioned that study here is for that way to point out that problem, which is not the newer one. You can't say that, okay, that is the problem of last 4 or 5 years. No, the problem of that one, that inpatient or in medicine problem is the very, it is start in the early 2000, as I start in the very early statements of my presentation. It is not the newer problem. Okay. So there is a survey published in that one. How are fluoroquinolones used appropriate in the patients? The used evaluation, actually DOE, 2 academic medical center emergency department are taken in that DOE, 100 patients in emergency department, then discharge. Appropriateness or indication of the therapy judged. That study published in Nuremberg, Archives of International Medicine, 2003. And that study, that survey shows that 86% of course are inappropriate of all fluoroquinolones. And you know that fluoroquinolones is the main, you can say, class of oral antibiotics in our basket. When we go for the baskets of antibiotic, we find out fluoroquinolones. So very important basket of our antibiotics, the ciprofloxacin, the ofloxacin. So here, yeah, they says that in 33% of cases, out of that whole 127 patient, the 33% of patients have the no infection in which that antibiotic is prescribed. There are 14% have insufficient information, and there are only 53% where other agent first line drugs are there, but they prescribe the fluoroquinolones. So that is the problem actually. Now the out medicine role, as I discussed earlier also. Okay, I will discuss that point in the later 2 slides because it is a very important point. The role of other animals and the use of antibiotics in other than the humans is very important. Actually, it is indirectly contributing to the development of resistance in us. There has been extensive use of antibiotics in animals. Those are used as human food, such as cattle, pigs, chickens, fish, etc. Very little restrictive legislation or regulatory limitation exists. I make that very little is bold and red and in the large font. It means that it is a that is point which should be focused. The third one is These drugs can affect the meat, milk, and eggs produced from those animals and can be source of superbugs. That is the problem. That is the problem. If AMA resistance gene comes from that one, basically the rising speed of the superbugs is due to that one outside of the human use. From the inside of human use, the resistance is developed, but not in such a space that the superbugs are developed. But it multiplies. It multiplies by other sources also, and the one very important one is that the animal sources. So that is the actually study published in 2004, antibiotic use in animal and other industries. That study published by the Morbach and his group in Veterinary Public Health, and that study shows that the overuse of antibiotics in the cattle's one. Then in March 2012, the US District Court for the New York ruling in an action after publishing of that, when that study published. Then the US District Court for the New York ruling in an action and ordered the FDA to control the use of antibiotic in livestock. Before that one, there is no policy and no regulation on that one. And then on April 11, 2012, the FDA announced a voluntary program to phase out unsupervised use of drugs as feed additives, requiring veterinarian supervision of their use and a prescription needed for that one. So it is start from 2012 now. All the use of antibiotics in the cattle and all livestock is now under supervision of veterinarian, and no antibiotic prescribed without the prescription. But that is the story of US actually. In the European countries, if we look out in our country, in other developing countries, it is not so. We take a survey of the use of antibiotics in the livestock and cattle here. Every XYZ go to the pharmacy of the where the, you can say, the drugs are available for the animals. They take the antibiotic, and that antibiotic given to all cows, buffaloes, chickens, and fish. That four very important component of livestock, which indirectly or directly consumed by the humans, and develop that factor contributing the development of the superbugs. Now, again, there is some basic science or pharmacology about the antimicrobial resistance. The mechanism by which the superbugs develop the, not superbugs, the pathogens develop the resistance. This is the figure which comprises that what are the targets of antibiotic. We know all that one, the cell wall, you can say, other targets of the antibiotic inside the cell. And I have there are many, you can say, mechanism. So I have compiled all that many mechanism into, I think, three. Three. There are basically, you can say, if you go for the broad umbrella classification for your student, you can taught them that there are three types of mechanism by which the resistance are developed. One is the drug inactivation or modification. The second one is the alteration of targets. And the third one is reduce intracellular drug concentration. Drug inactivation and motivation means a very common example, like we all know that penicillin and cephalosporin in some bacteria through the production of beta lactamase. The antibiotics described by the pathogen develop certain type of enzyme. The enzyme destroyed that particular antibiotic. That is a simple concept of that one. Like amoxicillin, though not we know that one amoxicillin now available with that one, the beta lactamase inhibitor, clavinic acid. What is the reason? The same reason is here. The second one is the alteration of target site. It is the challenge. It is not very easy to handle that one. Alteration of the pathogen alters the target. The where previously the antibiotics bind to the particular target. Now the pathogen alters that target. Now antibiotics doesn't find out the target or the receptor site where it binds and acts. So it develops the resistance. A very common example of that one, the alteration of the peptidoglycan cell wall, the binding target of penicillin in MRSA. Why MRSA is, you can say, the leading one in all the superbugs? Because of that one, because it develops the alteration of the target. Actually, it developed you can say make the changes in itself by which most of the antibiotics now doesn't find out the target. So it is very difficult to actually what happened here. There is a race between that two. One when we the scientists discovered any antibiotic to a particular pathogen. So the time, the lag time, or you can say that duration of that is so long that in between that one, the pathogen alter their target. When the antibiotic came, it like you in the earlier slide, you find out there is a 4 to 5 or 6 year lag time for which that particular antibiotic is active. After that one, the resistance developed. So what is the theory behind that one? The same theory or concept behind that one. In that period of time, it develops the alteration in the target or other mechanism and the resistance develops. That is the concept. And the last one is the reduced intracellular drug concentration. There are the certain pathogens. What they do, they make certain efflux pump. The antibiotics are effective. Antibiotics go to the cell, but they make certain efflux pump. They efflux the antibiotic throughout the cell. They pump out the antibiotic from that cell, and the drug is not bind to the particular target of the receptor and doesn't active that one. Efflux of multiple drugs by MDR membrane efflux pump, actually. That the second important component or factor involved to develop the superbugs or multi-drug resistance is that efflux pumps. There is a single efflux pump which is effective for pumping out or effluxing the more of the one antibiotic, not that particular type or class of antibiotic that is effluxes by that pump. No, there is a single efflux pump with effect efflux the many type of class of antibiotic by that single efflux pump. That is the problem. So the MDR resistance developed. Okay, now we move to the other, you can say the outcomes part or the impact part of the resistance in the clinical practice. Impact of resistance on clinical outcome. The first one is prolonged illness and greater risk of death, increase the cost of healthcare, and hampers the control of infectious disease. I have taken that 3 points, and I have make a single slide of, I think, all that point. Prolonged illness and greater risk of death for that one. This is the data. Prolonged illness and greater risk of death. That is again by the very you can say not you can say the earlier noticed one. This is a very uh, old point which is noticed in 2002 by when that study is published in Shia, the percent mortality, okay, the flow, take the, see the blue graph, that is only 1.4%, that is fluoroquine susceptible, and 8.1, that is the percent mortality increases from 1.4 to 8.1, near about 8 times more when the fluoroquine resistance have been developed. Okay. And that is the increase the cost of healthcare. Actually, cost ratio of alternative drug to first-line antimicrobials for common acute infections, it is, you can say it can be understood by that way. If a first-line antibiotics, as I told earlier, if you go to the market, if you go to the pharmacy store, you find out if you go for the basic antibiotic, the first-line antibiotics, the old one antibiotics, the classical antibiotics, all are the synonym one or the prototype of that particular class. You find out it is cheaper one compared to the higher one, the newer one of that class. It is a simple rule. Okay, newer antibiotics have the costly compared to the older one. So when the resistance developed against the classical one or the older one or the prototype one, what happened? Physician bound to shift the prescription from the lower one to the higher one, and ultimately the second line, you can say, or the third line, the cost has been increased, or fourth line, you see in that graph cost per patient. That is a study published by, that is also in the USA, and you find out that one, and they taken the example of 4 diseases: the gonorrhea, malaria, shigella, and pneumonia. And the first one, the bar is, as the first line, the cost, and the second, the gray color, and the third, you find out that the rising, the cost ratio of the rising, you can say, money or cost of that particular therapy. So what is the principle behind that? The simple principle I told. If we didn't control or we if we can't control a particular infection to particular first line therapies, we are bound to move that particular patient to higher side, higher domain, higher regimen antibiotics, longer and period of therapy regimen, and both higher and longer contribute to make its more cost. And it hampers the control of infectious disease, the development of superbugs. In a very starting slide of presentation, I told that I'll discuss that superbugs in the last one. The deadly MR superbugs, their significance and health impact, it is very important one for all of us to know about the superbugs. These are some common examples of superbugs, starting with MRSA. I discussed many times during that presentation for that thread. A bacterium then can cause skin, wound, blood stream, and pneumonia infection. And believe me that most of the MRSA is now developed the resistance. Okay. The second one is the VRE, very common one. I think we all know that one, vancomycin resistance enterococci, a bacterium that can cause blood stream infection and infection in the urinary tract and wound, according to the Mayo Clinic. Okay, for UTI. I think 2 or 3 years back, I make a survey project on that one, UTI infections, to my certain of my UG students, to collect the prescription of that one. And you also you notice that one in last after 10 to 15 year back, if it is very rare one to of that one to for UTI infection. It is very rare that a patient suffering with that UTI infection. And if there is a UTI infection, it is very easy to treat. Okay, it is very easy to control by with any common antibiotic, gram positive or broad spectrum antibiotic. But now you have found out that UTI infection is more and more common, and now it is not such easy to control that one until unless go for the higher antibiotics. So what it means? It means that if that type of UTI, it is BRE resistance UTI nowadays, especially in the females. Multi-drug resistant tuberculosis, I have discussed about that MDR-TB very detailed in the previous slides. And the Clostridium difficile, C. difficile, a bacteria that can cause severe diarrhea and colitis. It is a very important clinical point also. If you go for the gastro department of any hospital, you find out the rising numbers of the colitis patient. Again, if you go for a survey, I make the colitis patient in 2010, and now in 2025, you find out near about 3 to 3.5 fold increase of colitis patient in just 15 years. So what is the reason? Reason is that one. The next one is the drug resistant Neisseria gonorrhoeae. That is also a very important superbug. The next one is the CRE, that is carbimazepine resistance enterobacillus. The next is Candida auris, the Pseudomonas aeruginosa, the Acinetobacter pneumoniae. These are the certain superbugs which increases very rapidly in last 3 to 5 years. You can say from 20 to 25. And these are certain diseases which are caused by superbugs, the MRSA, skin infections, pneumonia, and blood streams. From vancomycin resistance, enterococci, VRE, because as I told earlier, the UTI, the wound infection, especially in the hospital setting. I have taken a survey paper here in the next slide, where you find out that what important is that hospital infection in that one. The next one is the CRE, the Salmonella pneumoniae, the E. coli, the Salmonella and Shigella infection in blood stream, and the gonorrhea. The next is the tuberculosis. As I told earlier, now it is MDR-TB, the pneumonia, the malaria, the fungal infection. Now again, the same thing, the same statement. If you go for that survey for 2010 and now 2015, you find out in that case, there is a 3 to 3.5 fold. Here it is more than 6 to 7-fold of increase of that fungal infection cases in just 15 years. It is, and if you go for a common survey of your city, you find out the rising numbers of the skin physician in your city. Rising number of dermatologists in your city. What is the reason? The reason is that one, increased number of the skin, especially the fungal infections. And most of the, remember that one, it is very interesting and very, you can say, the painful fact here, that one very alarming fact is there, and most of the fungal infection are the multi-drug resistant fungal infection or drug resistant fungal infection. That is not treated by the simple fungal. That is not treated by ketoconazole or fluconazole. In earlier date is very ketoconazole and fluconazole are the hit one, a very hit and very popular one. Either applied orally, given orally, or applied locally in the form of powder or cream. Any type of fungal infection gone within 7 to 10 days. Now it doesn't, the same case is not here now. If any patient have the fungal infection, it is start with the terbinafine, a very high antifungal drug for the 1 month or 3 months. Then the patient stop the therapy. After 6 months or 1 year, again the same fungal infection, say in the same part of the body arises again. What is that one? It means that that fungal infection is the resistant. And the last one is the HIV. That trial, as I told earlier, that is multi-drug resistance organism in hospital. That study published in 2019 by Moody et al. In clinical infectious diseases. That is study done by the Michigan Medicine Hospital. They included 2 hospitals, and they find out a very interesting data that you in the third row of that one, the first one is the population, the second one is the findings, the MDRO. MDRO is what? MDRO is multi-drug resistance organism on patient at 10% on admission, 6.2% on new acquisition, and 13.3% of any time during the stay in the hospital. And what are the 3 main superbugs from the hospital which the patient take from the hospital and go back to the home? The one is the MRSA, the VRE, and the GNB. Okay, GNB is gram-negative bacteria. Okay, so that it is very important one for us, especially our in developing countries where is no, that is the scene or that is the picture of the US, where I think I told earlier also that is the high standards of the all the safety measures on and all other things in the hospital administration. But in our India, in the government or private hospital, what is the condition? Everybody knows. So what the pace of carrying or acquiring or carrying the hospital acquired pathogens or superbugs from the hospital, then goes back to the society, goes back to home, ultimately to the society by the patient. So it is very important to address that one also. Now, the last part of my presentation, the strategies to curb further emergence of resistance. The first one is the very basic one, awareness and application of guidelines. WHO guidelines for antimicrobial uses in adults and children's, March 2010. It is given by WHO. Every authority, every medical authority follows that one. It is not so that nobody follow that one. Every authority follows that guideline. Every physicians follow. Every physician know that one. Okay, what is the rational use of antibiotic? How the we can do it. Every physician follow that one. After following all that guidelines, all that thing, that is the speed of development of that one. So assume that one, if there is no guideline in 2010 and physicians and all the healthcare component, all healthcare professional not follow any type of guideline, then what is the scenario? We can't assume that one. The second one is in antibiotic cycling. The third one is antimicrobial optimization. And the fourth one is, of course, the newer antibiotic research. I go one by one. Awareness and use of guidelines, it is very poor, very poor, very poor. I think now when the WHO or FDA taken the initiative to publicize the awareness of regarding the use of antimicrobial, it is somehow starts, but not in that way which covers the, you can say the, not whole, but the majority of population. It is not so. So that is the one study that in three, that is the case that uh, there is a survey. It means that only 30% said that they read the guidelines. Only from that 30, only 20% use that guidelines. 21% not familiar to that guidelines, and 29% have not seen the guidelines. Okay, that is the scene. The next one is very interesting one. That is for physician and pharmacist one, antibiotic cycling. What is that one? It is very interesting one. Periodic removal of certain antibiotic classes. Means what? What is the goal of that one? It curbs the emergence of antibiotic resistance and optimize the empiric antibiotic selection. Periodic removal means if there is a long therapy regimen for any type of infection, if you want to prescribe a long therapy regimen of that one, don't put the patient on the single antibiotic for that long period. Make a cycling of that 2 or 3 antibiotics. So make a dodging to the pathogen. Make a dodge to that one. Okay, make a skip to that one. So the pathogen doesn't have such much of time, lag time, as I mentioned earlier, the lag time to develop any type of those mechanisms which I discussed earlier, to either to modify the target site or to develop any flux pump. That is the cycling. Like make a quarter. Okay, when that antibiotic cycling theory came by Raymond DP et al. In 2001, they published that study and they said that use the antibiotic in such a way. Make a whole year quarter in such a way, in 4 quarters, and they use the antibiotics, ciprofloxacin, clindamycin, piperazine, tazobactam, carbapenem, acifapine, and clindamycin for which patient? The pneumonia patient. So they doesn't go for all pneumonia patient for the single antibiotic. Actually, they make the cycling in both way. They make the quarters of the months, their 4 quarters, and fix that antibiotic. For that one, we treat with that one. For that one month, if the patient came, we treat with that infection. So by means of that, there is a dodge or there is a skip for the development of the any type of resistance by the pathogens. That is the cycling. The next is the antimicrobial optimization. What is that one? Decrease the unnecessary antibiotic use. We have discussed a lot about that one. Tailor empiric antibiotic selection to particular situation, patient specific. It is very important one. And now most of the physician follows that one. They prescribe the antibiotic according to the patient history and patient genetic behavior. The physician asks about all that other, you can say, the existing condition of the patient and the, you can say, genetic pattern of the disease. Then he or she prescribe the antibiotic and maintain the broad choice of antibiotic. It is a very important one. Go for the specific and give the broader spectrum antibiotic, which is completely safe one and which doesn't give the much more time to particular pathogen to develop the gene or resistant gene against that antibiotic. And the last one, as it occurs, the race between the development of superworks and the race between the development of the new antibiotic. That is the scenario of the pharmaceutical R&D in the 15 largest by revenue. You can see antibacterial is on the last one, only 5% share. Which is the highest one? Lifestyle drug. What is the reason? Everybody knows. Okay. Okay. Why? Because here the therapy regimen is so long. Not only long, it is a lifelong treatment. If anybody suffers with hypertension, if anybody suffers with diabetes, the treatment goes years to years. So the revenue generated by that prescription and compared to the any infectious disease, the antibiotic prescribed only for 15 days or 1 month. So the revenue here don't come. See the comparison of that one. So the same scene in the interest in the R&D to develop the new antibiotic. And the second is that I described earlier, the development of the resistance. When the millions and trillions invested by any R&D to develop a new antibiotic, when it comes after 4 or 5 years, the pathogen developed the resistance against them, and the whole money got wasted. So that is another reason of that lack of interest of development of the new antibiotic. This is the trend in the development of newer antibiotic. It is a downfall. Of course, it is a downfall. It is data near till 2002. It is a data till 17, and lastly, it is a data till 10 to 18. You find out in 80s, it is a golden era of antibiotic. In the last one, I have make a very interesting slide, the whole story of that one, where you find out that one in a single slide. In 80s, it is a golden period of R&D. After 90s, it is a downfall. In 2000, now there are some serious players in the antibiotic development. So in the last 5 years, we know that there are certain new antibiotics we know which came into the market in the last 5 to 7 years, from 2018 to 2015, 25. In last 7 years, we have certain new antibiotics. But it is, of course, the rising resistance bacteria on the rise and antibiotics on the fall. That is a basic fact. Nobody can deny with that fact. These are certain new antibiotics, as I told. We all know that one. This is the, you can say, table here. Start with the doripinam, the televencin, the tedizolid, very interesting one. And there are certain antibiotics which are in the trials one. I mentioned all that one also. That one is the plasmocin, the phase 3 trials. The delafloxacin, which is approved in 17, broad spectrum quinolones. Then there are again a drug which is in phase 2 trial, that is ometacycline. Okay. So this is the case. There are very few you can count on the numbers in the last 5 to 7 years, and there are the lot of superbugs. Okay. So it is a very good slide. New antibiotics, pharmacophore in clinical trials. Okay. You find out that one. In 2011, there is 11 antibiotics in the clinical trial, 13, 16 in 2015, 15 in 19, is 19, and 2022, it is a 34. So it is a good symbol. It is a good sign that the more antibiotics in the trials, which moves from phase 1, now it enters into the phase 2 and phase 3. It is a good sign for us in the last 5 to 4, and we hope for the best for in the next 5-year cycles or 7-year cycles. Said that phase 2 and phase 3 drugs came into the market, and we pray for that to God for that one, that antibiotic come to the market, which is very much needed of the time for all of us, not only for the as Indians, or for all globe. What is the WHO response? WHO gives the policy guidelines. WHO supports the surveillance. WHO gives the technical assistance and knowledge generation for disease prevention and control program. This is the WHO Media Center. This is the mail ID on which you can communicate. And this is the you can download on that guideline, WHO Global Strategy for Contaminant of Antimicrobial Resistance. Now, move to the conclusion. Antibiotic resistance is a major global health problem. Antibiotic use is the main force driving antibiotic resistance. Antibiotics are common property resource. It is a very important point. It is not so that I am the patient and I am the physician. I prescribe to my patient. That's all. You can't misuse or overuse the antibiotic, as we can't misuse any of the natural resources. The same thing is about that one. And the resistant bacteria is responsible for community and hospital infection. Useful strategies for antibiotic resistance includes education and guidelines and the surveillance. This is the slide. As I told, the story starts in 1900. The top 3 leading cause of death were infectious disease. Then you can, in 1929, Fleming publishes the first paper on penicillin. Then 41 penicillin in clinical trial. Then 43 penicillin given to World War II pest soldiers. Then 48 resistance developed. Then that Me Too drugs, the 70, 80, over 60 antibiotics are really the golden era of that one. And then when we move further and further, you find out that one, the development of resistance. And what is the prediction in the last, you can, if you go for that one, 2050, 10 million antibiotic resistance cases related to that as predicted each year, if not controlled. So that is the scene. Apart from the development of such pace of that antibiotic, this is the scene for 2050. So now I am concluding my presentation on very basic remark, you can say, story. In 80s, we all know that one, a very common hit antibiotic in India, for us, when we are very small children, the Septron, the brand Septron, contain the trimethoprim and sulfamethoxazole. In 90s, what are the common hit basket? One are the common popular baskets, ciprofloxacin, amoxicillin, erythromycin. In early 20s, ofloxacin, oxythromycin, cephalexin, cefadoxil, cefaclor. These from 2006 till date, what is the scene? The basket, ofloxacin, azithromycin, cefixime, cefotaxime, cefodoxime, that all are the cephalosporin. We are overusers of the cephalosporin. You can say, we overuse and we overexplore the whole basket of cephalosporin in last 10 to 15 years. Otherwise, cephalosporin is very highly effective, or you can say highly effective antibiotics. The meropenem, the doripenem, the tazobactam, the tazobactam, that the last three or the newer one drugs. And we see the trend, the decreasing trend of pharma industry towards newer antibiotics. So what after 2040 or what after 2050? Either the newer potent antibiotics or the pre-antibiotic era. So let's try to prevent the drug resistance and handle the antimicrobial with care. Thank you. Thank you all for patient listening. This is my number. This is my mail ID. You can contact me for anything. Not only for this one, for anything. You are always welcome. Thank you. All questions are invited.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tarique Mahmood, for delivering such a powerful and enlightening session on antimicrobial resistance, breaking the silence on a looming public health emergency. Your insights into the scientific, clinical, and public health dimensions of antimicrobial resistance have been truly eye opening. We sincerely appreciate the clarity, depth, and the urgency you brought to this discussion. Your contribution has not only enhanced our understanding, but has also inspired us to reflect on the critical role healthcare professionals, researchers, and society must play in combating this global challenge. Thank you once again for your valuable time and for your outstanding contribution to the 92nd SPSR webinar. Now there are some
Thank
questions
you.
from
Thank
the
you, Dr. Pradeep.
participants, sir. Thank you so much, sir. There are some questions, sir. I will be asking you one by one. The first one is,
Okay.
sir, how serious is the contribution of over-the-counter antibiotic sales to the antimicrobial resistance in countries like India?
Okay, Dr. Pradeep. As I discussed in the presentation also, basically that over-the-counter program is for a country like India, or that such type of countries where there is no very high restricted regulation in the pharmacy stores, as in the US and or other developed countries. So the problem is that one on the both side. On the both side means it is a problem of patient, or the self-medication is also a very common problem.
Right.
And the availability of the over-counter antibiotic is again the problem. Patient a patient have certain infection, go to physician. It is
Right.
okay. Physician prescribe the medicine. It is okay. He goes to the pharmacy store, take the medicines. Then he start the medicine, and for the 5 or 7 days, whatever he prescribed, physician prescribed, and he or she now is feeling well, he stopped the antibiotics. So after certain months or 1 year, If he again have any type of such type of problem, now he doesn't go to the physician. He find out that
Right.
prescription, or if he knows, yeah, remember that name, he directly go to the pharmacist, take out that same antibiotics. So I have again the
Right.
same throat infection which I have the last year I have the same throat and the same antibiotic and I started that one. So that is the problem. And the
Right.
next part of that one, the second aspect of that one, the more some more literate person, they in the first case they doesn't go to the physician. They directly go to the pharmacy, take that so and so antibiotic, start that one. As
Right.
I gave the example of the cefixime in the
Right, sir.
pediatrician, you also find out that one. Cefixime and azithromycin, that two are the very popular antibiotic for the respiratory infection
Right.
for the children. So it means what? Azithromycin from the higher one is from the macrolide category, and cefixime is the higher one from cephalosporin. So what
The
happened? And
fellows will.
in the most of the cases, it is the OTC one, not prescribed by
Right.
the physician one. They go to the pharmacy store and there is a layman person and they says that I have the cough for last 3 days. He gave one expectorant and one antibiotic. That is the scene.
Right.
Okay.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The next one is, sir, could you elaborate on how poor patient compliance contributes to the resistance development?
Poor patient compliance again, actually, the problem in such type of cases where the patient burden is very high, like India. In India, our hospitals, our physicians are loaded with a very high patient burden. Every
Right.
hospital have overcrowded, every physician is overloaded. So what happened actually in the follow-up visit, actually, the follow-up visits are very important, but it basically at par in the private sector, but in government sector, it is something poor compared to the private hospitals. Why? What is the reason? The simple reason is the fee. When we go to a private hospital, you go again for the registration fee, and the physician take as a new patient, give the full time to you, and all things are okay. There are the do's and don'ts instructions from the physician. Patient follow that one. It's okay. But as far as the government hospital is concerned, physicians are overloaded for follow-up visit. Most of the cases,
Right.
the junior team assists that patient, or the nursing
Right.
or pharmacist staff assists the patient. In that cases, the patient thought that it is not the doctor sir, okay, it is the other person. So it doesn't take the seriousness of that instruction, which is not given by the physician. Other than
Right.
physician, it is he or she thought that it is not said by the physician, so it is not so much important one.
Not.
So
Right, sir.
and the second one is the part actually the lack of education and poverty is one of the factor which involve in the patient compliance. If you go for
Right.
the cost wise, you find out that the antibiotic therapy regimen is costly and costly nowadays. It is very difficult for you can say patient below the poverty level patient or that one. Thanks to the government, our government to start that Jan Aushadhi
Yeah, doctor to
Yojana
film.
of the Jan Aushadhi Yojana of the drugs. Very thanks.
Right.
Actually, it is a very noble you can thing which is done by the government. It is not necessary.
Right, sir.
It is not easy to make available of such type of antibiotics. Not only antibiotics, other costly drugs on a such cheaper rate. So,
True, sir.
in certain cases, it is very difficult to for patient to you can say complete the therapy, which is costly one. So one is another point related to patient compliance. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. The next one is, sir, which bacterial infections currently pose the greatest challenge due to resistance in clinical practice?
Basically, if you go, then you find out that the as I discussed earlier, the MDR TB is very important for us, especially in India. The MRSA resistance cases, the infection, and the fungal infection. That three are basically. And if you go for
Right.
the region wise, if you got the India in basically in the India, Russia, and Indonesia in that region, in Asia region, and there are certain part of the global, if you go for global variation, then the Asian part, the South Korea, Japan, and Taiwan is the sufferer one. And for MRSA, the USA is not safe one. The USA is also having the same cases of that one MRSA patients.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir. The last question is, sir, why has there been a noticeable decline in the development of new antibiotics by the pharmaceutical companies?
I discussed that point when we on that slide. Basically, that is actually the two things are there. One is that the for pharma industry actually, what is the thing? In very frankly, they are in business. They are. This is the pharma business actually. And for
Right.
development of a newer antibiotics, it takes millions and millions in R&D itself up to the clinical trial, and then it comes to the market. And what
Okay.
happens to that antibiotics? We have seen that only 4 to 5 years that antibiotic is effective for that particular infection, then resistance will develop. Then that
Okay.
antibiotic have no use. So the basic reason is that one. And the second one is that the increasing number of the lifestyle disorder is another point. The industry focused more on at that time on the lifestyle disorder. It started from the diabetes mellitus to the cardiovascular diseases to other metabolic disorders. Basically, because what there are two reasons. Not only the reason which involves the money backup. The second is the increasing number of the patient also, patient population, patient burden.
Right.
So the R&D, the space R&D space is the limited one. The scientist space is the limited one. So they invest more time, more money on that one compared to that one. But that scene is changed, as I told in the data. From
Right.
2018 till like in last 7 years, we have certain new antibiotics in market, and there are many in the clinical trials, as I mentioned in the slides. So in phase 2 and phase 3, near about 34 at present, near about 34 new antibiotics which are in the pipeline, and hope for the best come to the market. So, but that is not you can say at par at the development of the resistance. So it is required to focus on more and more on the development of newer antibiotics, and as well as at the same time use very cautiously, very judicially the antibiotics which are existing on the existing basket.
Right, sir. Thank you so much, sir, for
Mhm.
answering all the questions so wonderfully and with such clarity. Your thoughtful responses have provided deeper insights into the growing challenge of antimicrobial resistance and practical strategies to combat this global threat. We truly appreciate your expertise, the clarity of your explanations, and the engaging way you addressed each query. Thank you once again for your valuable time and outstanding contribution to the 92nd SPSR webinar. So here we come to the conclusion of this session, sir. So as we
Thank you.
conclude the 92nd, thank you so much, sir. So in the conclusion of the 92nd SPSR webinar, we extend our heartfelt gratitude to Dr. Tarique Mahmood for his enlightening and thought-provoking session on antimicrobial resistance, breaking the silence on a looming public health emergency. Today's presentation has clearly emphasized that antimicrobial resistance is not just a future threat, it is a present and pressing reality. The urgent need for the rational antibiotic use, improved infection control, active surveillance, and global collaboration was conveyed with clarity and impact. We hope that the insights shared today will inspire all of us, academicians, healthcare professionals, and researchers to actively contribute towards addressing this silent but growing global crisis. On behalf of the entire SPSR team, we sincerely thank Dr. Tarique Mahmood for his valuable contributions and all participants for their active engagement. We are deeply thankful to Dr. Shashi Alok, the National President of SPSR, for honoring us with his presence. We recognize and appreciate your commitment and guidance, and we offer our profound thanks for your significant input. We would also like to express our appreciation to our convener, Mrs. Monika Sabharwal, for her pivotal role in organizing this event. We extend our gratitude to all the SPSR team members for their collaborative efforts, which have broadened our understanding and fostered cooperative learning. Your collective contributions have made this webinar a success, and we look forward to continued collaboration in advancing pharmaceutical sciences and research. We look forward to your participation in future SPSR webinars as we continue to explore groundbreaking topics and foster knowledge sharing in pharmaceutical sciences. Thank you once again, and we wish you all the success in your endeavors. Have a wonderful day ahead. Thank you so much, sir, from Team
Thank you,
SPSR.
thank you. Thank you, Team SPSR. Thank you, Dr. Pradeep. Thank you, Dr. Shashi, sir, for inviting me and for interacting us with such a wonderful audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.